Good morning, everyone. Uh-oh. Thank you for all joining us for the 2026 budget kickoff. I'm Tiffany Greenemeyer, the director for the Governor's Finance Office. Today, we will walk through the economic outlook, budget priorities, and agency updates that will shape the 28-29 biennial budget. These discussions are critical as they set the foundation for our state's financial future. Just a quick housekeeping. Please silence your phones. Restrooms are down the hall. And after each presentation, we will pause for questions. So do not hesitate to ask questions. This is a great time to ask questions because your question could be someone else's question. So please ask questions. And then we will pause for a 10-minute break after the CIP presentation, and then another after the fiscal note presentation. So directors, I know your schedules are tight. You may leave during the second break as we will move into the technical details on the NEBs and the budget changes. And I also want to, before I kick this off, is give a big thanks to my staff. They did a great job helping us pull this all together. They worked hard on the budget manual, and that's a big lift. So I want to thank them. And with that, let's kick things off to Dr. Ortega. He is the GFO, Chief Economist.
Okay, now, there you go. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Mauricio Solori Arteaga, and I'm the Chief Economist for the Budget Division at GFO. And today I'm going to give you a little bit overview of the national economy. We're going to take a look at our state economy. Then we're going to have a little discussion on short-term expectations. And I'm going to share with you some state resources if you have any questions after the presentation or at any time during the upcoming months, okay? Let's get started with the national economy. So the numbers for GDP were released last Friday. So for the fourth quarter of 2025, we've seen a significant slowdown of the economy, especially when you compare it with Q2 and Q3 of 2025, where we saw growth of 4.4%, 3.7%. The growth for the last quarter of 2025 was only 1.4%, okay? Now, these are the first signs that we're seeing consumer spending is slowing down. This last quarter was affected mainly because of the government shutdown. So if you take a look at the graph, you see that there is a major dip on the government spending, and that was because of the government shutdown. Now, if we take a look at the imports and exports, we see kind of the same story that we've seen through the years, where the imports are higher than the exports. That's just how the economy works here in the United States. Now, if we take a look at the real GDP forecast that the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta has published, we've seen that for FY26, we expect quite a bit of growth in overall GDP for the entire year. And this is because we're expecting around $700 billion of AI investment to be injected into the economy in 2026. So that's what's going to be driving the economic growth on FY26. Now, FY27 and FY28, they're going to go to their normal 2% growth that we've seen historically. And we'll see what happens with the sustained economic growth that AI is going to bring into the country. But these are very modest forecast estimations from the Federal Reserve Bank, okay? Now, if we take a look at consumer spending, this is a really nice study that Bank of America published on his own consumers. So they went out and investigated how much of spending was driven by their consumers, and they divided higher income households, middle income households, and lower income households to see how much they've been spending through the years, and they figured out that the higher income households, which are households that make more than $117,000 a year, they spend 2.7% higher than the prior year, whereas the middle income households spend 1.6%, and the lower income households, which are households that make $30,000 and less, they barely spend any money. So you see the change is 0.7%. It's just, it did not move at all. So we can conclude that the consumer spending that we have seen throughout the country was mainly driven by households who make more than $115,000 a year, okay? Now, if we take a look at the national unemployment rate, we see that the unemployment rate has reached a stable 4.4% level. The Federal Reserve Bank, they don't have a target on unemployment rates, but it seems that they are happy with a 4% unemployment rate. That seems to be the number where the economy thrives. That seems to be the equilibrium point. So we see that the unemployment across the country is around 4.4%, which is very close to that happy medium of the Federal Reserve Bank of 4%. Now, we take a look at the personal consumption expenditures. These personal consumption expenditures is the preferred measure of inflation of the Federal Reserve Bank. There is another measure of inflation that you probably hear of, is the Consumer Price Index. But the thing is, the personal consumption expenditures, the Fed likes this one as the measure of inflation because this one takes into consideration price substitution effects. So what do we mean with price substitution effects? Is that when you go to a grocery store, you usually buy the same product, the same brand every single time. But one day you go to the grocery store and you find out that product is $1 more expensive than last week. So what do? You go and buy the cheaper one, probably the store brand. So that price substitution effect is taken into consideration in this PCE measure. So if we take a look at the PCE, the PCE for the last quarter of 2025 was 2.9%. The core PCE, which is when we take out food and energy from it, the core PCE was 2.7%, so the average of those two is 2.8. So we can see that the inflation is still kind of sticky at 2.8%, really close to 3%. So that's way above the 2% target that the Federal Reserve Bank has, okay? Now, we'll take a look at core services. These core services, as they are must-have services like utilities, public safety, what else? Healthcare. So these are core services that the society has. So we've seen that the price of these core services have come down, whereas core goods, which are goods that go into things, okay? For example, a cup of coffee, the core goods of a cup of coffee is the plastic to make the cup, the coffee beans, the cardboard so you don't burn your hand. Those are the core goods, the goods that are used to make things. So we've seen quite an increase of prices on core goods for the past couple years. We've seen quite a sharp increase in 2025 because of the tariffs that were happening. So that's one of the things that the Fed is taking into consideration, is what's going to happen with these core goods moving along in 2026. Now let's take a look at federal fund effective rate. So this federal fund effective rate, this is the interest rate that you hear people talking about all the time on the news. Oh, the Fed is going to cut the interest rates. But what interest rate are they going to be cutting? They're going to be cutting the federal fund effective rate. So what is this rate? This is the rate that banks charge each other when they lend money to one another. And they lend money to one another because they have a requirement for reserves. So for example, Wells Fargo, when Wells Fargo issues $50 million worth of loans to its customers, all of a sudden their reserves are $50 million less, but they need to meet that requirement every single day. So Wells Fargo asked JP Morgan, hey, JP Morgan, could you let me borrow $50 million? Oh, yeah, of course, here's $50 million to meet your requirements. Now that $50 million is going to have an interest rate of 3.64%, okay? So that's how much Wells Fargo is going to pay JP Morgan for that borrowing of money. Now, that interest rate is going to be passed down to the consumers of Wells Fargo, right? So that 3.6% is going to be attached to personal loans, it's going to be attached to student loans, it's going to be attached to car loans, you name it, okay? Now, if this base interest rate decreases, the interest rate for credit cards rates decreases as well, because this is the base that is attached to every single loan. So making a reference to credit cards, we've seen that the APRs on credit cards now is an all-time high at 20%. So I encourage you to go and take a look at your credit card statements, and you will see that probably you have an APR of 20%, give or take, okay? So that's because of the high interest rate that we have here right now in the economy, because the Fed is trying to ease down the inflation pressures. You know, it's trying to take that inflation to 2%. Right now it's at 2.8%, so we might not see any changes on the interest rate in the next couple of months. So we will still have 20% interest rates on credit cards. Now we take a look at a 60-month loan for an auto, for a new vehicle. We see that interest rate is around 7.2%. And now the reason why we're talking about auto loans is because on our sales tax, if you take a look at the categories, our main category is food and drinks. The second one is new vehicles. All right, so now we have a 7.2% interest rate on new vehicles, so we are expecting to see some sort of a slowing down on the buying of new vehicles, because 7.2%, this is with good credit, all right? You have excellent credit, this is gonna be your minimum that you're gonna get. If you don't have any, like 750 points of credit scores, you're probably looking at a 10%, 11% interest rate on a new car. So that's one of the things that we are tracking as well to see how is that gonna play out. Now, on the 30-year Treasury bonds, this interest rate, the reason why I'm showing it to you is because this interest rate on Treasury yields, they dictate what's going to happen with the mortgage rates. With a 30-year mortgage rates, a mortgage company, the Fannie Mae, they use this 30-year interest rate to do some sort of a projection of how much the mortgage rates will be. So right now, we're looking at a 4.7% interest rate on 30-year Treasury bonds, and it seems that high interest rate is going to persist for the next couple months, because there is a lot of institutional investors that are a little bit worried of how the country is going to be able to repay this debt that is issuing. So transferring to a 30-year mortgage rate, we've seen that the mortgage rates have come down to 6%, but due to the fact that the 30-year yield on the Treasury bonds might still really high for the next couple of months or the next couple of years, the mortgage rates might oscillate between 5.5 and 6%. So we will see that this interest rate might not come down as people were expecting in the years prior to the beginning of the year, okay? Now let's take a look at the state economy. So on population estimations, the latest census has the Nevada population at around 3.3 million people. And as you take a look at the chart, we have a very steady, consistent growth in the state. Unemployment rate, it's at 5.2%. If you take a look at the graph, the pre-pandemic era, it's been around 5%, and then the post-pandemic era, it kind of oscillates around 5.2%. So this is kind of the happy medium for the Nevada economy. We always run a little bit higher than the national economy, and that's due to our economy, all right? That's due to the business that we conduct here, like leisure hospitality. You know, we're a very seasonal type of industry, so we always run a little bit harder than the national economy, but this seems to be the happy medium for the state at 5.2%. Now let's take a look at the visitation numbers. This is the visitation numbers. Probably you've seen it in the media all the time, like, oh, visitations are down, and they're indeed down. If you take a look at the physical years, I know it's a little bit harder to see from above, but pre-pandemic era, we were averaging around 4 million visitors a month. After the COVID pandemic, the visitation number was slowly recovering to reach that 4 million visitors a month. But now we're around 3.6 million visitors a month on average. Now, one of the things here is that the visitation numbers have come down, but our revenues are still strong. They're been coming at a very stable pace. And we have a few theories about what's happening here. It's that effect of quality over quantity. The quantity goes down, but the quality of our visitors have increased. And one of the reasons for this is for the type of events that we're now having in Vegas. If, for example, you take a look at F1. I was looking at tickets for F1 for last November, and the cheapest ticket was like $300, $400. I'm like, ooh, probably not. So I went, I was like, no, no. So for my curiosity, I went and take a look at the most expensive ticket. It was $100,000, and they were all sold out. I'm like, who pays $100,000 for a single ticket? You know, it's crazy to think out. And then you go to Vegas and you take a look at the beer menu and you see $20 for a Coors Light, and like, probably not. You know, it's like, what's happening here? So that's kind of the effect that we're seeing here, is that the quality of our visitors is coming up, but the quantity is going down. So that's kind of what explains our revenues. So let's take a look at our revenues through November. This is fiscal year 26 compared to FY 25. So through November, major revenues are up 14.7%. Our minor revenues are down 1.6%. The overall collection is up 12.9%, and now we need to factor in the tax credits redeemed. Tax credits redeemed are up 24.8%. If we subtract the tax credits from the overall collections, we have a net collection of 12.6%. Now, one of the things that I want to point out on revenue collections, when you're taking a look at Silver Sage or you're taking a look at the Department of Taxation's numbers, is that we had an issue at the end of FY25 with the cyber attack, that we were not able to collect all the money from the commerce tax. So most of the money from the commerce tax, which is around $82.8 million that were supposed to be allocated to FY25, now they're being allocated, they're being distributed into FY26. So that's why we have quite a large number when we compare it to FY25 on the major revenue sides. And then there is another one that I'm going to explain in the next few slides, so you guys can see it and you can understand what's the issue here. But let's take a look at this graph first. The total gross collection is $2.1 billion. From that $2.1 billion, 89.9% of it comes from our major revenue sources. And if we take a look at our major revenue sources, which is the pie chart to the right, that 42% of it comes from sales and use tax, then 22% of it comes from gaming percentage fees, and 12.3% comes from modified business tax. Now, if we take a look at our minor revenues, so our minor revenues make 10.1% of our overall collection. Business license fees make 24.4% of our minor revenues, followed up by commercial recordings, which made up to 17.8. Then we have cigarette tax, 17.14, and then we have liquor tax on our collections. Now, if we take a look at the total tax credit redeems, we redeemed $52.2 million in tax credits. Most of them, 72% of them, goes to commerce tax credits. Then we have new markets with 11.4% and economic development with 7% tax credit redemption. Now let's take a look at the historical trend of the major revenue sources. This is through November, okay? And now this is the other important consideration that I want to clarify to everyone. So you take a look at FY25, that blue bar on the bottom is sales tax. Okay, so if you take a look at 2025, starting through November, we had issues with the collection and distribution of sales tax due to the new system implementation from the Department of Taxation, Mint. So we saw quite a major dip on November collections because of this system implementation. So you see it kind of is a major dip of 6.1%. So this is something that it lasted for almost a year. So you will see, when you see these revenue collections, when you see especially FY25, you will see the numbers of sales tax all over the place. It's because we were having issues with the new implementation of the system. And then at the very end of the year, we had that big collection allocated to FY26. So you're going to see a major dip, a major bump in the collection of sales tax. But that's something to do with the system that we have. It has nothing to do with the economic activity of the state. It was mainly due to system issues. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at a revenue reports and you see that weird pattern of sales tax, okay? Now, taking a look at minor revenue sources, this is another one that we had issues when we implemented the new system. Cigarette and liquor taxes, they were affected on FY25. But the main story here with the minor revenues, without taking into consideration the issues that we're having with cigarette and liquor tax, and I believe that we still have an issue with cigarette tax in 2026, okay? So that's why 2026, if you take a look at the red square, that's the cigarette tax, okay? But if we look at the cigarette tax from 2022 to 2024, we see how that red square is been shrinking and shrinking and shrinking with the years, and that just has to do with new generations not smoking anymore. All right, so that's a thing. Cigarette tax, it might continue to shrink as the years pass, goes up, and cigarette tax is one of our major minor revenue sources. So we're expecting our minor revenue sources to decrease as cigarette consumption decreases in this country. Okay. Now, short-term expectations is that sales and use tax and gaming percentage fees are expected to remain stable as borrowing costs ease with declining interest rate and visitation stabilizes. Live entertainment taxes are expected to continue to rise as younger generations prioritize live events and travel experiences rather than big-ticket items. Now, on the real property tax, as we saw on the graphs, that mortgage rate might not come down from 6%. We've seen in the market that most buyers and sellers are making pieces with the fact that we probably will not see mortgage rates at 3% like we did the years following the pandemic. So we're seeing that locked-in effect is dissipating from the economy, so we're expecting to see higher collections on real property tax as that locked-in effect dissipates and buyers and sellers start, make pieces with the high interest rates, okay? Then overall, revenues are on track to meet forecasts. And then my last slides, these are just state resources. If you guys have any questions with regard to gaming collections, you can contact Shelly. Unemployment, David Smith. Taxation, you can contact Erica. Any sort of demographic, you can contact Christopher. Then we have Bob on works and economic development. Kyle for tourism, and myself, if you have any questions with Silver Sage revenue reports. And that's it. I'm gonna pass it down to David. Thank you. 18 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Solorio. Good morning, everyone. My name is David Lenzner, and I serve as a Deputy Director of the Governor's Finance Office. Aaron, France, and I will provide a high-level overview of the budget build process, key dates and deadlines, enhancements, the budget cap, items for special consideration, equipment replacement, and one-shot appropriations. Whether you are new to the budget building process or have prior experience, it is vital to understand and track the key dates and deadlines that shape our work. These timelines are designed to ensure that every component of the budget submission is completed both efficiently and effectively. Success in submitting a budget largely depends on careful planning and adherence to these deadlines. The important dates and deadlines discussed today are listed in the 2729 Budget Building Manual. This manual contains a dedicated section called the Budget Timetable. You can find the 2729 Budget Building Manual on the Budget Division's website. Moving on to the budget cycle. The budget cycle includes 3 phases. The first phase is agency request, which opens in NEBS today and is due no later than September 1st. NEBS will be closed at 4 p.m. on September 1st. Also a reminder that this submission includes the agency checklist, fund maps, position fund maps, org charts, pitcher and catcher reports, travel, and other logs as applicable. The second phase is Governor Recommends, which starts in October and ends in January, and includes the adjusted base questions process, where the agency's GFO and LCB concur on your base budget, effectively as the adjusted base budget. Information within GovRec remains confidential until the governor officially transmits the budget to the legislature, and this transmission must occur no later than 14 days before the start of the legislative session. And it typically aligns with the governor's State of the State address. The third and final phase is legislatively approved, which spans the duration of legislative session. The session lasts 120 days, beginning on the first Monday in February. And for the 2027 session, the start date is February 1st, 2027, and concludes at midnight on May 31st, sine die. After the session, the LO1 budget is released in mid-June and is available for use starting July 1st. Moving on to key dates for agency request. Capital improvement projects greater than $100,000 or those meeting the definition of a structural or a statewide project, applications must be submitted by April 1st. Technology investment evaluations, referred to as TIEs, are due to the GTO by April 1st. Policy bill draft requests will go through a concept approval phase again for this cycle. Do not enter policy BDRs into NEBS until they have passed the concept approval phase and approved by the governor's office. This entry in NEBS will be due by June 12th and will be finalized by the GFO and the governor's office by July 29th. Budgetary BDRs are due in NEBS by August 14th, and please remember to include the associated decision unit with that budgetary BDR. For fleet services, requests must be to fleet services no later than July 1st, and vehicles must be pre-approved to be included in your agency request budget. GTO preliminary utilizations are due July 8th, and final utilizations will be due in NEBS July 31st. CIPs, ties, BDRs, fleet services, and GTO will be discussed in more detail later this morning. And now I'll invite Aaron up to provide a high-level overview of the rest of the components of the budget.
Thank you, David. Good morning. My name is Aaron France. I'm an Executive Branch Budget Officer with the Governor's Finance Office. This was Curtis Palmer's section, but he came down with budget kickoff-itis this morning. So, so Curtis, I know you're watching. I hope you know I'm calling in sick on Friday. Enhancements. Any enhancement units submitted by the agencies for consideration in the upcoming budget cycle will need to align with one or more of the priorities identified by the governor in his strategic plan. Agencies must clearly outline how enhancements will advance the state's performance relative to the priorities and related goals. Enhancement narratives must include how the enhancement will be funded, including the prioritizing of resources from less than effective programs or activities. Any new additional investments will need to improve annual targets for existing performance measures or identify what priorities will be used in any newly proposed performance measures should the enhancement be approved. Two times cap. The Nevada Constitution requires a balanced budget where revenues must equal expenditures. And all agency memo from the budget division will include the cap for each department. And it is important to understand that the cap does not go away even if the economy is growing. Agencies are required to prioritize their enhancement requests. A cap in general is calculated by taking the legislatively approved funding from year 2 of the biennium and adjusting it by removing one-time cost or any salary changes and then doubled. This would be the department's cap. The 2 times cap applies to general fund and inter-service fund supported accounts. It does not include statewide inflation, caseload, federal mandates, or court orders. Any highway funded accounts, you must work within your statutory funded limits and work with your executive branch budget officer if you have any questions. Enhancements outside the 2 times cap are included in items for special consideration. Items for special consideration are enhancement requests that fall outside the cap. Remember, there's no guarantee these items will be approved for funding, so don't include requests in items for consideration that are critical to your mission. Requests are submitted in separate NEBS version A02 and reviewed during the governor's recommended phase. These require a clear description of the proposed activity, purpose and expected outcomes, detailed cost breakdowns, and alignment with the governor's priorities. Examples of requests included in items for special consideration include new statewide programs, major IT investments, personnel, or initiatives requiring statutory change. The items for special consideration are not used for equipment replacement. Items for special consideration will need to be well thought out and fully justified to be considered in the governor's recommended budget. Equipment requests. Any equipment intended to be any equipment intended to replace existing equipment must be itemized in the equipment schedule in NEBS on individual line items that tied to the E710 series decision units. You must use E710s through E719 decision units to request replacement equipment. The same decision unit should be used when budgeting computer software associated with computer hardware. The decision unit justification must include detailed explanation as to why the equipment requires replacement, and a replacement schedule must be attached at the decision unit level. Additional details can be found on page 48 of the 27-29 budget manual. One-shot appropriations. Funds that revert from the prior biennium may be used to fund large one-time expenditures. The GFO makes a determination on the amount of funds available and works with the governor's office to approve which request will be approved. Summaries of one-shot appropriations. These are one-time purchases that represent a significant expense, long-time procurement or completion times. Appropriations may be authorized for a time period beyond the biennium. The agency request decision unit may be converted to an E888 decision unit during the governor's recommended phase. Amounts are typically entered in the first year of the biennium. Amounts are pulled out of the agency budget request during the governor's recommended phase and moved to GO2 version to be put in a budget bill. See page 35 and 36 of the budget manual. And that concludes our portion of our presentation. Now it's time for me to move and introduce our favorite IT guy. No, it's not Nick from Saturday Night Live. It's Mr. Tim Galuzzi, and he's going to turn the on and off button off and reboot his priorities for GTO's upcoming biennium. Thank you.
And we'll make sure the mic's on. I've done this once or twice, right? All right. So my name is Timothy Galuzzi. I have the honor of serving as the state's Chief Information Officer and the Executive Director of the GTO. You may, depending on how long you've been in the state, you might know us as Do It, if you're an old school, old timer, or EATS, or OCIO, more recently, artist formerly known as OCIO. But now we are the Governor's Technology Office within the Office of the Governor. Our purpose is laid out, and all of our enabling legislation is laid out in NRS 242, and it declares we are necessary for the coordinated, orderly, and economical processing of data and information in state government to ensure the economical use of information systems and to prevent the unnecessary proliferation of equipment and personnel among the various state agencies. And you're gonna kind of hear a bit of a theme as we go through the introduction today of GTO and talk about our upcoming budget build. How do we accomplish all of this? We do so with the GTO's vision of a secure and innovative technology ecosystem that helps every Nevadan receive reliable, modern public services. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today, We're going to go over our services, what we provide, hopefully, to every single one of your agencies. We're going to talk about a new initiative that we're implementing to hopefully better secure our relationship with our third-party vendor community as it relates to our cloud products, as we become more reliant on cloud products moving forward. We're going to talk about our favorite process in state government, the technology investment evaluation process, and we're going to close out talking about some key dates. So, a little bit about GTO. First and foremost, we've kind of been through a lot this past year, right? First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for your resilience, your tenacity. Thank you for all of your hard work, your collaboration, and all of your coordinated efforts to get us to where we are today. We couldn't do what we do without your support and your continued partnership. And the team that I represent is who I am here to talk with you about today, and it's what makes up all of GTO. We're going to start with the administration team. That's the team that I'm a part of within the director's office in GTO. This is the team that's responsible for policy and governance. It includes our project and portfolio management team, our technology investment evaluation group, our chief data officer. It's the team that works on our planning and communications, and it's there to support you for any agency escalation. So if you have any issues with any of the services that you are receiving from any of our operational teams, we are there to support you and help you resolve those issues. Next up, we want to talk about our Office of Information Security and Cyber Defense. They are the team that supports the Nevada Card Access System, the Secure platform, security cameras. It's the team that supports the information security officer community. They provide direct agency security supports. They support the KnowBe4 platform, Microsoft Defender, the State Security Operations Center, and other security tools and platforms across the state. The Network Services Division, they support Silvernet, the Network Transport Team, which new products are coming out all the time within this team, supporting wireless communications between buildings, which was absolutely imperative when we were standing up the McCarran complex, supporting building-to-building communications. This team also supports our fiber infrastructure across the state. Newly reorganized Unified Communications team supports video teleconferencing and local area network across all agencies and platforms within networking components across the state. This is also the team that supports our VPN connectivity. So if you have remote sites that need to get into our Silvernet infrastructure, this is the team within our Network Services Division that supports those technologies. Our Computing Services Division supports mainframe, hopefully not for too much longer, print, and multiple server platforms. This is the team that also supports Office 365. Cloud services, so if you're looking at modernizing your platforms to move to a cloud environment, please come talk to us. This team also supports identity. So if you need login support for any of your services, whether that be for constituent services or employee services, this division is the team that supports that. This team also supports patch management and software delivery across the entire enterprise. And then we also have our Client Services Division. This is the division that supports the service desk and the field services. So those folks that come to your offices and help you on some of the most frustrating days, this is the division that supports those efforts. This team also supports database management, application development, our web team, supporting the state's content management platform as we're upgrading to a new modern cloud-based content management system that can support really anything that you can envision on a web platform. This is the team that is doing that work today. This team also supports platform as a service. So if you're endeavoring to build out a workflow, content management system, document management system, we have the capability now within GTO to support you on those types of projects. Really, with me describing all of these services, platforms, technologies that GTO is supporting, what I really want to leave you with is if your agency is endeavoring any of these types of projects, come talk to us, because we really have a lot of options and opportunities, a lot of capabilities that we can already provide you. And here's the real secret sauce. Chances are that you're already paying for a lot of these things. So instead of going out and leveraging a third-party tool and going out on your own individually, come talk to us first, because we probably already have that platform or can at least provide you advice on your journey to help avoid a little bit of pain and avoid a little bit of duplicate spend. So with that, I'll kind of move on. We really just want to be a partner with you and try to help you. To kind of highlight that, GTO is an internal service fund entity. We derive almost all of our funding by being a partner to you, by the collection of rates from the services that we provide. Either those rates be a per head count type rate or from the actual utilizations of our services. And so we rely on the partnerships with all of your agencies in order to fund the work that we do. And so why is that important? It's these conversations that we're having today. It is the accuracy in the budgets that we build that informs how we build our budget. And so what we want to avoid is having an inaccurate budget build, because that will only cause all of us a little bit of heartache moving into the next biennium. What I want to avoid at all cost next biennium is a mid-biennium rate change. Because that's not a pleasant experience for any of us. If I have to do that, that means we're all walking over to IFC doing work programs to do a mid-biennium rate increase, which would be incredibly unfortunate for all of us, or any kind of drastic change. And so help us by having a conversation. Help us by getting real good, accurate utilization projections. We have definitely seen in the past, some Cat 26 piggy banking, so to speak, where agencies could potentially overestimate what their utilizations might be going into the upcoming biennium, and then those utilizations might come down pretty drastically. Well, that would cause some issues for that cost pool, for that service that we're trying to provide for everybody. So help us try to avoid that by let's work together to get real good, accurate utilization projections. One of the things I want to highlight here is SAM 1622 requires that all agencies use budgeted funds that are budgeted for GTO services for GTO services. The only two individuals that can approve those funds being used for any other reason is myself and Director Greenemeyer. And so please, let's be really diligent with our budgeting for GTO services and make sure that we try to nail those utilizations down as best as possible. So to get into the GovRamp initiative. I know we've had conversations with quite a few of you about this initiative moving forward. We have all been investing over the past few years on a lot of third-party cloud products. Because let's face it, we don't have a lot of on-hand resources to develop at the maturity level custom software and tools that our third-party vendor partners can. And so we have become incredibly reliant on their products and services. But we also don't have as deep of a security bench that we would really like to have to be able to do the adequate security validation and testing that gives us the level of confidence that the tools that they're providing for us are really protecting state data and protecting what we have been charged by Nevadans to protect is their information. And so what GovRamp provides, GovRamp is a nonprofit organization. What they provide is a third-party assessment of those cloud products, and better than that, they'll do an ongoing assessment of those third-party cloud products. And so what we're doing is we're baking this into our technology investment evaluation process from the very beginning. And so in order to move forward on a third-party cloud investment, we're going to be looking for GovRamp as part of our evaluation process. And so why are we talking about this today? Y'all are starting to build your budgets. And so as you're working with your vendors, building your budgetary quotes, have a conversation with them about GovRamp and check to see if they are GovRamp, if they're on the GovRamp list. Chances are they are. About 80–90% of the vendors that we're all using, they're already on the GovRamp list. About 35 states across the nation are already engaged. About 35 states across the nation are already engaged with GovRamp, and so this is not a new program, so to speak. So a lot of the vendors that we're already engaged with, especially the larger ones, they're already in there. Now, there is room for exceptions with some of the small Nevada-owned businesses, because we know we don't want to limit participation for small minority veteran-owned businesses, et cetera, in Nevada. So if you have any questions about GovRamp, please come talk to us. But you know, we really have a duty to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to protect state Nevada systems. And you know, just because we're bringing on a third-party vendor doesn't mean we get to, you know, remove all the risk associated with that investment. And so that leads us to the technology investment evaluation process. And so with the tie, you know, our involvement with the technology investment evaluation process, it goes back to the purpose of our agency existing from the very beginning. We are charged with the economical use of technology across the entire executive branch. And in that, we have a duty to ensure that we reduce the amount of duplicative spend, we ensure the security of systems being deployed, and we ensure that they are compatible with what is being deployed across the state. And so we are going to be evaluating these in such a way that we are looking at investments through that lens. And so if we see investments that are incredibly duplicative of systems that the state has invested a significant amount of capital on, for example, if we see a investment that is duplicative of the ERP platform, that investment will probably get a higher degree of scrutiny and might not move forward. If we see an investment that is duplicative of like the state email platform, you know, that would be an example of an investment that doesn't move forward. Similarly to the state content management system, the state web platform, the state has invested a significant amount of resources and capital into launching a new web platform for the entire state. And so we're going to be scrutinizing the technology investment evaluations requests through that lens, as well as the cybersecurity lens and the architectural fit. So, you know, in the past, has had an appearance of a checkbox that people are just going through a bureaucratic process, but it isn't that. We are really looking to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars and ensuring that we are limiting duplicative spend across the state. And there will always be a conversation. If there is a significant business justification, we will have that conversation, but we just want to be very clear that especially for some of these large statewide investments that have been made, part of the opportunity of those large statewide investments is to remove some of these duplicative spends across the state. Because while that small website investment might only be 10, 20 grand, in one agency for 1 year, you multiply that by 20 different agencies, 30 different agencies, that starts growing pretty exponentially. There's also a security component to that. So it's not just about the spend, it's about what we can protect from the enterprise level. We can protect one platform that is common across the state versus 20 different platforms. And so some of the key dates, Mr. Lenzner has already kind of discussed these, and so I'm not going to belabor it very much. The big one that's kind of up on the horizon is the ties are due to GTO April 1st. So let's make sure we hit that one. We are turning these things around in between 3 to 6 weeks. I know we've already started seeing some ties come in. And the tie process, if you remember the tire process, which was a very long narrative-based process, even the tin process, which was, I will admittedly say, a bit clunky and it crashed out quite frequently. The tie process is a much more modern, easier process. If your investment is a simple renewal of software license, or if it is a equipment replacement, it's going to be a much shorter form, much easier to submit than maybe a large cloud investment. So we're trying to right-size this and make it as easy for agencies to submit as possible. And if we need to have a conversation, if you guys need help, we're here for you. And then the rest of the dates are up there. I don't feel the need to read them. I'm sure everyone will get copies of these things moving forward. And then contacts. So if you have any questions whatsoever, our contact information's here. We're available for you. Myself, my senior deputy, Darla Dodge, Jason Benshoof, he's serving as my interim deputy right now, my chief technology officer. He heads up my technology investment team. LJ, she is our technology investment administrator. You guys have probably worked with her, or at least your financial teams. Tiffany Morelli, she serves as our CFO, so any budgetary questions, rates questions, et cetera, you can reach out to them. So with that, that wraps me up. If there's any questions, you want me to handle those now, or so if there's any questions for me, I'll take those now. Rachel. Yes, we are looking for a, if it is FedRAMP, we would accept FedRAMP as a equal to GovRAMP. Anybody else? Come on. All right. Guys, get me out of here easy, huh? All right, well, thank you so much. Once again, thank you guys for all of your partnership. We really look forward to working with you. I really just want to leave you with, we have a lot of capability, and that capability is only increasing. It's an exciting time to be in technology with all the new tools and capabilities that are coming out with AI and all the capabilities that is granting to government. I see it every day across the agencies. Y'all are doing some really exciting stuff, and we want to help you. We want to be partners with you. So come have a conversation with us. We would love to help you out on that journey. And the earlier you have that conversation with us, the better we can help you. The last thing we want to see is being surprised by something in the last minute, because then, you know, we can't help you as much. And the last thing we want to do is be an impediment in your implementation journey on anything, right? So bring us in early, bring us in often, have a conversation with us, and we're here to help. So thank you guys, appreciate you. And then next up is State Public Works with Administrator Lewis and Brian Walker.
Good morning, everybody. We got to follow Tim Galuzzi. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. I'm Will Lewis, Administrator of Public Works, State of Public Works, and I have along with me my Deputy Administrator, Brian Walker. You know, the slide says, where is it? Our first slide, oh yeah, it says Wilfred Lewis. That's when I'm in trouble. I'm not in trouble this morning yet. We're happy, guys, to be here this morning because what we're going to do is we're going to give you an overview of our capital improvement program, which we affectionately refer to as the CIP. And then along with that, we're also going to touch upon our facilities and maintenance program, as well as our leasing services. Next slide. Oh, we do that? Oh, we doing it. Okay. You got me? Okay. What is a CIP project? Well, a CIP project is never a project that's involving carpeting or painting that has a cost that's under $100,000. Or even a project that focuses on window furnishings like drapery and blinds. Neither do CIP projects consist of projects associated with mechanical systems, maintenance projects, or replacement of filters, media systems, things of that nature. However, a CIP project will always cover or have within its scope areas that involve roof replacements, fire and safety code requirements, paving and building exiting projects, as well as ADA requirements and structural enhancements. In other words, a CIP project, guys, is often a project that is generally over $100,000. Next slide. This is a project that we're really excited and we're proud of. It's the Heroes Memorial Annex Building downtown Carson. It is a CIP project. It was recently completed in August of 2025. The project included significant seismic retrofitting along with the major building components being renovated or replenished. This is what we would consider to be a successful CIP project. It checked all of the boxes. It met the CIP requirement as far as the intended scope. It stayed within the allocated budget for the project, and it was completed on schedule. I gotta have a little humor. This is not a CIP project. What you're looking at is a log cabin built in the 1862 Homestead Act. The building featured one door, two windows, which was the basic requirement of the Homestead Act. And of course, as you can see, there were no strict building code requirements, no enforced building inspections, but miraculously, with a couple of 2x4s, or I'm not saying 2x4s, but a couple of logs on the side, it still stands to this very day. This is not a CIP project, but we gave it as we provided it just to give you a little bit of a comparison, bring a little humor into our presentation to show that we at Public Works, we deal with all kinds of different projects. So with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Brian Walker. Brian's going to talk a little bit about our CIP process. Brian, please.
All right, thank you, Will. I'm going to start with an overview of the Capital Improvement Program, or CIP, and the application process. So the CIP process requires state agencies to request projects at the website shown here. And remember, if we don't hear from you through the CIP application process, we don't automatically enter these projects on your own. So it is critical for you to log into the website early and enter your applications. The most important thing I want you to note on this slide is that applications are due April 1st. I think you've heard that already a couple times. I guess we're reinforcing it. The other thing, please plan to present your project request to the State Public Works Board on August 26th and 27th. So that's another key date for you to circle in your calendar. The website we put together is a comprehensive program Public Works developed to help with the application process. It includes directions on the website on how to go through the application and contact information for various Public Works employees to help your agency develop your requests. And kind of key with that, if you have questions, please reach out to Public Works to the contacts shown on there. You can reach out to me as well. We want to make our project managers available to help you with the application process. These folks are the experts in construction, in various construction disciplines. So if you're not sure what you're talking about or what you're requesting, please reach out. We want to help. Once you log into the website, you will see unfunded projects are loaded from last session. And so you do not need to re-enter these projects or modify them from last session as a part of this initial process. But know that through our process, a Public Works project manager will reach out and contact you. This is after the April 1st deadline to confirm the project scope. So there is a change on an existing project request. We can work through that with you. The other thing I want to talk about now briefly is a new CIP application policy that we are implementing this session. So Public Works will only develop full project budgets for the top 50 projects that each department requests. This is a change from last time around. Additional projects can be requested by a department, so don't worry about limiting it, but Public Works will only develop a rough order of magnitude for the first 50 projects you submit. The other thing that we have changed is unfunded construction and planning projects that have been unfunded for the last 2 sessions will be removed from that preloaded list. Unfunded maintenance and statewide projects that have been unfunded for the last 3 sessions will also be removed from the list. So if you need to re-request or need to have one of these projects still be part of the process, please submit it as a new application. The reason we're doing this is we received about 700 requests last session, so a large number. We're happy to have them. But this new policy is going to help us focus on the projects that are at the top of the list that we really think will get funded. All right, well, this slide is just a summary of the different sections of the application. I'm going to walk through these for you guys as well. All right, but before I walk through it, here's another graphic for you guys this morning. So when you're looking at this, I want to say, please make sure you take the time to provide clear and concise information in the application. We rely on the agency to clearly communicate the need, your project need to us. Not providing full and complete applications really hurt your project as we spend our time struggling to understand what your need is. So please take the time. I guess we need you. I guess you need us too, but we really do need you to be part of this process with us. All right, so with that, the first section, this is probably the easy one. You'll see in our application is the administrative section. This is where we ask you for project name, description, location, etc. So hopefully that's an easy one for you guys to fill out. The next section you'll see is the narrative section. And this is, I like to say, this is really your section. This is where you justify the project need to us, and this is very critical for you to take your time to justify the need. You need to identify and justify why your project is to be funded in the CIP. All these projects are important, but remember last time we had 700 projects, we didn't fund 700 projects. So you need to make a case of why your project needs to be funded. In this part of it, facts are highly regarded over your opinion. So we need to have a good factual basis of why your project needs to be funded. And I guess the last thing I always want to say on this slide is you, the using agency, you're the lead in justifying this project to us. So this is a section that we really do need you to take the lead on. Next section for you to look at is your outside funding source section. This is required if you have funding that's not state funding. So if you have federal funds, typically federal funds, things of that nature. So we ask some additional questions as a part of this. What is your funding breakdown? What is your source of funding? What constraints do outside funds place on the project? What do you still need to make these funds available? And when do these funds expire? In this initial application, you're just answering questions, but be ready to provide the funding documentation and backup information to us as we start developing the project. Next section is the site analysis section, and this is, again, intended for new construction only, so not for every project. This section is going to focus what is needed for a new facility. And so we'll ask questions, does land need to be acquired? What improvements are needed to make this location ready for your project? The last bullet, known offsite improvements, what I want to point out there is we use the word known intentionally. So don't worry about knowing all the answers to the questions. That's what the process is for, and that's what we'll help you with. So don't worry about having all the information as you fill this out. Fill out what you know, and then we can help you fill in the blanks as we move forward. Next section, the programming section, is required for new construction, building remodels, and additions. Programming for us it's actually an architectural term that we use to define what work is needed as a project starts. So this section will focus on your square footage requirements, your occupancy type, what type of staff and how many staff will be in this facility, and what type of furnishing, fixtures, and equipment. We say FF&E. It's just, what type of desks, how many desks are going to be part of the project. So this is where we'll start to collect questions on what this needs to look like. The last section in the application is the office space planning question. This is a little bit of a different section, but again, this is for new construction, building remodels, and additions only. And in this section, we ask a series of questions. It's actually a little bit more of an information gathering tool for Public Works overall. And we're going to ask about your current and future needs at this facility. And we'll use this information to do long-term planning, to look at state-owned office space, other consolidation opportunities, what is going on, between your department, between this project, other departments, other projects, so we can start to make some, I guess, higher level decision making on these projects. All right, and so here's, like everybody else, here is the approval process again with some dates. This slide tells a little bit more about what will happen after the April 1st deadline. The first thing you will see after April 1st is our Public Works project managers will develop the project request, will develop a complete scope and budget. So hopefully what you'll see our guys crawling around different agencies, different locations around the state, working with your facility and maintenance folks to develop these projects. After that's done, we will meet Public Works and department management teams will meet at the end of July to confirm project scope and direction. This is a very critical meeting for us. This is our time for Public Works and you, the agency, to meet and confirm that the project is what you think it is, to confirm the scope and direction. The next thing you'll see, and like I mentioned, is there's an August 27th and 28th meeting where State Public Works gives you the opportunity really for the agencies to present their projects to the State Public Works Board. This is a great meeting for you because this is your opportunity to justify and to advocate for your project in front of our board at a public meeting. After that, Administrator Will Lewis will take input from those presentations and prepare his funding recommendation for our board in September. And just moving down the list, the State Public Works Board, there's a lot of steps, will present their recommendations to the governor on October 1st. The governor takes those recommendations and puts it into his budget request, January 2026, January 2027, along with the rest of his budget. After that, we're off to the legislative session. A key thing during the legislative session, we do need your support. We'll work with you closely during that session. We make various presentations on your projects, various questions, and other things going on. So we'll need your support during the session as well. So the last thing I want to cover with you today is just a reminder on maintenance projects. So State Public Works Facility Condition and Assessment section periodically inspects state buildings and provides maintenance project recommendations. Some of these recommendations can be covered by your operating budget. Some of them, many of them, can also be requested in the CIP. It depends on the recommendation. So I want to remind you to look at these reports as you're developing the budgets, as you're developing your CIP requests. One really big thing to remember is that the cost estimates that are presented in these reports are to a planning level of detail. So they don't include many things that we would see in our CIP products. We call them soft costs, which is permitting, design fees, contingencies, things of that nature. If it's just going right into your budget, we have not received quotes from contractors. It's just our internal costing that we put together for these. And some of the cost estimates are years old. So just be aware that these are planning level estimates that need to be substantiated. We will do it on our side. You need to do it on your side as well as you're putting your budget request together. So with that, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I'll hand it back to, we're not quite done. I need to hand it back to Administrator Lewis for a minute. Thank you.
Brian is so good at taking all of my thunder. Okay, so let me just move into another segment of our presentation real quick. I want to give an overview of our leasing services. Leasing services objectives is, their main objective is to maximize the use of state-owned buildings, as well as to ensure that existing buildings are fully utilized as much as possible. And with that being said, their objective is to explore these options before considering leasing options where we go out to private parties. And as we focus on that strategic space planning approach, again, leasing service, our goal is to assist agencies in relocation and expansion with their long-term goals and long-term planning. And it allows us to present the best options to your agencies to consider. And as we implement leases through leasing services, our goal is to drive down costs by streamlining our process and minimizing unforeseen costs so that we can give you as an agency the best process, the best product that meets your need. Additionally, we aim to improve efficiencies and consolidate our efforts as much as we can by identifying opportunities, I'll get it right, to combine agencies that share spaces as well. Let's go to the next slide, Brian, you help me with that. Okay. Ah, boy, I touched something. Okay. Our leasing services department manages both state-owned office buildings leases as well as private leases. The division is committed to reducing reliance on private leases by prioritizing our use of state-owned facilities whenever possible. And I'm so glad to say that we're changing our DNA as a state. We're becoming more property owners and landowners. And with that being said, we're actually improving many of the spaces that your agencies are occupying. It was appalling when I first took over as administrator, some of the spaces that we had our agencies trying to operate in and administer their programs. And so I'm so glad to say that now, especially if you have a chance to see our McCarran campus, we're changing the tide, guys, and it's nice to be a part of that. To discuss space options for your agencies, we encourage everyone to submit, as you see on the slide, a space request form, which is available on our website. And when a state-owned space is not available, leasing services will provide research data from the private sector with the best options for your agency to consider. Come on, Brian, help me. Leasing services will ensure accuracy and consistency in all rental leases agreements by providing a detailed plan layout along with rent coding from our Building and Grounds Department to ensure accuracy in the billing process. We also provide and we maintain quarterly billing, which is sent out to all the agencies on the second month of each quarter. And again, that helps you to keep a firm hold of how your money is being spent and how your budget is being spent to cover your leasing needs. All of this is part of the services that leasing services cover. Every agency play a critical role. Brian kind of touched upon that with the CIP, but with leasing as well. By updating your respective budget information and confirming your agency funding sources, and we on our part do our part to validate the rent coding, it all helps us to avoid having errors in your monthly leases down the road. Can't say it better than that. Next, we encourage all agencies to see the leasing services website so that you can understand some of our processes, as well as our strategic partnering that we do with your agencies. Providing support for all your leasing needs is one of our primary goals, and we accomplish this by optimizing space usage, which in turn creates cost savings for all state agencies. Our leasing services can also develop or provide detailed marketing analysis to help guide your agencies in making informed decisions regarding your leasing needs. As a reminder, though, all agencies must coordinate their leasing activities or their leases through leasing services. This is a provision of the NRS, and we encourage everyone to take advantage of that provision. With that being said, we encourage everyone to know that early notification should be provided at least 365 days before your lease expires. And you may say, well, that's a year's time. But when you look at all of the work we do in leasing services behind the scenes, I guarantee you we need every day that we're asking for. So please work with us on that. And on a special note, we strongly encourage all state agencies to submit in advance all required documents in our processes to ensure that we can project an accurate budget as we help you develop your budget for your leasing needs. Okay, and then the next slide, Brian. Yeah. Here we'll cover the items needed to properly forecast lease costs for your facilities. First, ensure that all current obligations are included in your budget planning. Use the state's master lease log, which is available on our website, to verify existing data. Second, for new space or relocation requests, submit a budget request form to receive a market analysis of the current rental rates. And note that the market analysis will take into account the rising real estate costs at any particular time, and as well it'll give you projections so that, again, whether you're dealing with a renewal, a relocation, an expansion, or tenant improvement, you'll have pretty accurate numbers to make your determination of which route you want to go. And then finally, space identification depends upon a detailed occupancy and regional requirements, so please keep in mind that your renewal rates provided are just estimates only. We're giving it our best guess, but we're basing it on the data that we were able to put our hands on. Okay. And next, we'd like to just touch on a few items to consider when estimating your facility's needs. A basic requirement for new staffing, of course, all new employees will require additional space, along with office furniture and equipment. And while this may seem to be very obvious or given, it's often overlooked or is thrown in at the last minute, and then we're scrambling trying to put it into the budget. As you consider your agency's furniture and equipment needs, keep in mind, if your agency is relocating or it's assessing whether an existing space meets the needs in terms of furniture and equipment that will remain, leasing services can assist you in determining if specialized items are needed to make that happen. And again, please reach out to us. We want to partner, like Tim said, with GTO. We want to partner with you guys to make sure that we give you a complete picture. And when your agency purchases new equipment, don't forget to plan for the removal of old items. That seemed to get thrown by the wayside many times. And that's a cost, to dispose. You should also keep in mind that this is a no-brainer, that no state property can be left in a vacant space. We got dumpster divers that love to dive into thrown away or discarded furniture. So keep that in mind. We have to properly dispose of that as well. Come on, Brian. Moving costs. I think I went a little too far. Anyhow, let me just give us an update on moving costs. As you perform your due diligence, budget for moving expenses in any scenario involving relocation of new furniture and equipment. Even adding workstations to an existing space may require assistance with heavy items. Again, that should be factored into your budget. And finally, technology and communication. I know Tim talked a little bit about it, but look, don't forget to include the cost for data, telephone lines set up in new facilities, and for additional workstation. Again, we work hand in hand with GTO, and GTO team manages these installations and the decommissioning of the equipment. But again, we're all part of the same team, and the more we can work seamlessly together, the more cost savings we give for the state of Nevada. All right, where I'm at. Yeah, good. After finalizing your budget, if you have an expiring lease, or you require a new space, or perhaps your agency is planning a move or expanding a current space, then you need to prepare what we have up on the screen right now, a space request and space justification form. You submit these documents along with your budget estimates at least 365 days in advance. That, again, allows leasing services to do their thing. And by doing so, again, we're able to project costs for your leases that will meet your needs, and it'll be fairly accurate, if not right on the point. For detailed guidance, we encourage everyone to refer to the requested instructions on our website, or you can contact any one of us in Public Works if you have any additional questions. And for remodel, expansions, or reconfigurations of your existing lease facilities, please review our policies and forms that's available on our division website for additional information. And Brian, one more? Yeah, please. Leasing survey. Okay, so all forms and key information, as well as additional resources, are available on the Leasing Services website. And as always, Leasing Services is here to answer any questions you may have. And with that, I think we're at the very end of our presentation. So yeah, we'll open it up to questions. Anyone have any questions? No questions. All right. Thank you so much for your time.
All right, real quick, we'll take a 10-minute break. And so please be back at 10:35, and we'll start the next presentation with Office of Federal Assistance.
Can we get every?
Just got to proceed.
Mic check. 1, 2. No.
You did great, even for a squid.
Even for a squid. Is it working? Is it working? Can you hear me? Can everybody take a seat? Can we get everybody in their seats? Can we get everybody in their seats? If you can hear my voice, clap. If you can hear my voice, clap twice. We could do it like the kindergarten style that we do. I do have a 6-year-old, so. I can't believe that worked. Sorry, Tiffany. So I'll go ahead and get it started. Hopefully everybody's coming in. I am Akia Sanders. I'm the director of the Office of Federal Assistance, and we'll go into a little bit of overview of the office. So I wanted to provide an overview because I know we're a newer agency, and we were created in the 81st legislative session, and a lot of agencies are really getting used to utilizing us, our services, responding to my emails. Yes, please respond to me, don't ignore me. It hurts my feelings. So I'll give you a brief overview of what our mission is. So OFA serves as the Nevada Centralized Coordination and Compliance Entity for federal and non-federal assistance, supporting agencies in identifying, applying for, and managing grant funding, in alignment with the state plan for maximizing federal assistance, as well as the governor's 3-year plan or strategic plan. Our core functions: we serve as the centralized coordination of federal and non-federal assistance, intergovernmental review, which is a federal executive order, 12372. So we serve as that single point of contact. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide. And compliance and risk mitigation support. If you're having issues, I don't want to do like the whole finger thing. Just reach out to us, and we'll provide any support, preferably before it goes to the federal government and kind of gets exacerbated. If we can provide any support before, that's what we're here for. Grant discovery and technical assistance. You can reach out to me or my team at any time if you have grant questions. There's no need to be embarrassed. I'm not an expert. Sometimes I phone a friend, right? So we are the friend that you can phone, and if we need to phone another friend, we'll do that for you. Cross-agency coordination and strategic alignment, and training and workforce development. We have some special training opportunities. I know a lot of you guys participated in our Ide Bailey training in the very beginning of the year that we did together with GFO and the Controller's Office. And we also have a grant matching program. And what that is just an opportunity to provide support for car share requirements and federal grants. And we also, I added this as I was sitting and listening to everybody else talk. We provide support in navigating conversations at the federal level. So if you're talking to your grant program officer, you're having issues with a certain grant, the feds don't want to budge, please pull us in, and we don't mind helping you navigate that. Single point of contact and intergovernmental review. So OFA is Nevada's designated single point of contact, and that falls in line with federal executive order 12372. So a lot of grants call for intergovernmental review, not all of them, but some of them. And if that is the case, you should be reaching out to us. We have a form on our website that you complete, so we can provide that support. And so it coordinates in-state grant applications subject to Executive Order 12372. And the form that we give back, you would annotate that on a SF-424. I'll try not to use acronyms. I am prior military, so I don't know. And all agencies must notify OFA of all grants applied for, received, amended, or at risk of being returned to the federal government. And so it's a little bit different than the intergovernmental review requirement. Per NRS 223.480, if there's any grant that you're going after, you should report to us. And it's through the same form, and you submit those through the online automated form. So today we'll talk about building grant programs, whether they're existing or new, into your budget in NEBS. And all of the information that I'll go over is on pages 40 through 41 and 55 in the new budget build manual that's on the GFO website. So why does this matter? Supports accurate, transparent federal revenue budgeting. It avoids delays and corrective budget actions, and it ensures grant-funded positions and costs are fully supported. And it also strengthens compliance, audit readiness, and risk management. So accurately budgeting federal revenues by grant in your budget. Budget-only revenues received directly from the federal government as federal revenue. Record funds passed from another state agency as a transfer in, not as a new grant program. Report federal revenues by individual grant award, including federal agency, grant title, revenue GLs 3401 to 3600, and the amount. And use the most accurate biennial projections available and align your base federal revenues to fully support any positions funded in whole or in part by the grant. So please make sure you're using correct revenue GLs to identify new federal funding properly. Do not use generic titles such as federal funds. Clearly specify grant name and funding type when you're adding this in NEBS. New federal revenue sources must be identified in both the agency request budget and NEBS. And if a new revenue GL is needed, select the closest appropriate GL from the controller's chart of accounts and talk to the budget division from GFO and the controller's office to get approval. So required documentation that you need to upload when you're adding these new grants into your budget. Please provide the notice of grant award. If you're adding a new grant that you anticipate that you'll receive before you finish building out your budget, upload your entire application, and I'll show you where in a minute. So that way you can still, it's like a provisional, you're just adding it to your budget because you anticipate having it. Include detailed calculations for carry forward or unspent balances and reconcile projections to the award amount by fiscal year. And make sure you're including your methodology as well. And then you include your maintenance of effort form, if applicable, and grant match summary form, if applicable. So expiring or sunsetting grants. So you use the decision unit series E490. And this is to make sure that if you have positions paid off the grant, that you eliminate them. If you intend on bringing those positions back under another funding source, you'll need to submit an enhancement to bring those positions back. And this is a picture of the updated grant summary form. It should be on the GFO website, or just reach out to GFO if you need a copy. And this is a picture of the updated maintenance of effort form. Again, reach out to GFO if you need a copy. And this little white picture thingy that I circled, that's where you would upload all those documents as you add that new grant program in NEBS. Questions? I made up some time. Now I'd like to introduce Administrator of Fleet Service Division, Robbie Burgess.
Wow, questions for me already. Wow. Good morning, everybody. I'm Robbie Burgess. I humbly serve as the administrator for the Fleet Service Division. Just a quick show of hands. Everybody familiar with the Fleet Service Division? Yeah, I see a lot of familiar faces in here. So the Fleet Service Division mission, we provide superior customer-driven service to state agencies while being at the forefront of fleet management in alternative fuels and technology. Our strategy is to partner closely, rented lips this morning, holy smokes. Partner closely with the private sector to ensure the product we deliver to our customers is delivered in an efficient and cost-effective manner while focusing on one goal, and that goal is to serve our customers' problems quickly and efficiently. And our statutory authority is under NRS 336. The services that the Fleet Service Division provides is long-term vehicle assignments, short-term vehicle assignments, maintenance, fueling, reporting, and strategic fleet planning. For the budget request for 27, 28, 29 is the long-term vehicle request. Please review your agency's mission and the tasks that you're trying to achieve by leasing a vehicle. Focus on what the vehicle needs to do, where it needs to go, how many people it needs to transport. Does it need any specialized equipment such as a camper shell, toolbox, liftgate, service body, or anything such as that? Do you really need a four-wheel drive? Do you need a specific color? Click on our vehicle schedule link for a complete list of vehicles that we offer. Does the vehicle meet utilization guidelines in SAM 1407? Fleet Services will be monitoring vehicle usage and maintenance requirements for all additional and existing vehicles within the agency. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact me directly. Okay, to adhere to AB 262 from the 82nd Legislature, asking for if you want to do an EV or if you want to go hybrid. If you're looking to move your agency assigned vehicles toward a hybrid or electric vehicle technology in the next biennium. Both EVs and hybrid vehicles are available to choose from in the NEBS vehicle schedule. Also, call me if you have any questions regarding the EVs or hybrids. This is a picture of our MP5 request for long-term assigned vehicles. We need to have this, it was stated before, with all the due dates, we need to have this vehicle MP5 form returned to us by July 1st, no later. I want to make a note on the second page of that MP5, if there's any agencies or departments that are interested in converting their agency-owned vehicles to a Fleet Service Division vehicle, that backside of that MP5 is where you would put the request in for agency-owned vehicles, converting them over to Fleet Services. This is a picture of our vehicle schedule that's on our website. It shows all the different types of vehicles that are available through the Fleet Service Division. Like I said before, all the Fleet Service Division forms, including the MP5 long-term vehicle request and vehicle schedule, can be seen on our website at thefleetservicenv.gov. And making up time too. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to hand this off to Bashir Washington, the Administrator for the HR Division.
Is this thing on? Okay. Hello there. I am Bashir Washington. I am the administrator for the Division of Human Resource Management. I'm going to be going over our classified, unclassified position request. So the HR process, for those who are not familiar with the HR process, the HR 19 is a form that you are creating. One second, because I'm supposed to smile at the camera. Okay, so the HR 19 process, it allows all of the departments to request new positions, request any reclassifications of vacant positions, or any reclassifications of existing positions. One thing we did last session was we implemented the pre-ledge review of those positions. We are going to be doing that this year for the classified and the unclassified. I'll go into that a little bit later. For our classified positions, The HR 19 process must be completed. It must include your work performance standards, your essential functions, and the job specification. Again, it's for classifications of new positions, reclassifications of vacant or filled positions. There's short form classifications of a new position, and then the legislative review. We will be putting out information next month in regards to the pre-leg review process, which will allow you to submit that information as soon as possible. We'll make sure we coordinate with the dates that the GFO has in order for you to submit. Once you get approval for those pre-leg reviews, you will receive a memo to get that approval. Everything that you submit to us has to go into NEBS. When we do and provide you with any approval memo, that too has to go into NEBS. We're going to be working closely with the governor's office and providing them with logs of all of the requested positions or jobs that you guys are requesting. If you have a job and you want to include 7 additional PCNs for that one job, you only need one HR 19. You just need to ensure that the number of positions that you're requesting is on that form. Next month, we will also have your class comp HR business partner reach out to the directors to coordinate and facilitate that communication between them and you all. If you could all designate a liaison for that HR business partner to have that communication with throughout this budget bill process. We will be setting up folders in our Teams chats with the business partner and your person that you have selected, so that any HR 19s that are submitted can go right into that folder. We will have the log available, and that log, again, if the position's approved as what you requested, it'll be on that log. If there is a retitle, this process where you guys have a love-hate relationship for us, because you love it when we say yes, and then you hate us when we say but no, and I get that, but we will make sure the justification is there, and then we will provide that information to the governor's office, so when you do your meeting with them, they'll also have that information as well. But Bashira, I need someone who is working with space aliens, and they do something incredibly different, because who else works with space aliens? And they are going to create these programs for these space aliens. Yeah, you need a program officer. I mean, and that's the realistic piece of it when we look at it. We look at the job duties. We see if there's an existing job out there in our state service. And if not, then yes, we do help you to create a brand new job title. So I talked a little bit about that, completing the HR 19. Please make sure that you complete it in its entirety, as detailed as possible, so that we can help you get what you need. We're not here to be barriers. We know you know better than anyone what you need in your department. With the implementation of all of our CBAs that we've had for years, we have to, in Durham, be more strategic when we're looking at these new positions, these reclassification of positions, when we make our determinations. So I'll get into the unclassified. What we are finding is that we have 10 unclassified codes for executive assistant. Why? Because my executive assistant talks to space aliens, Bashira, that's why. However, the duties are the same. So one thing we are going to be doing this session is looking at those U codes. We're going to be consolidating a lot of those U codes as well. If there is a request for an unclassified position, there is a form that we have created that has to be completed. That form as well must be uploaded into NEBS. It is a very short form. What's the job title, what's the duties, the responsibility of that position, so that we can, one, determine if we have a current and existing U code for that, or if we need to create a new one. So we will be sending more information out on that as well. And we also will have that information on our SharePoint page. Okay. And just to give you a little, there's 73 manager job titles, 16 admin and deputy administrator job titles that we need to consolidate. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so if you are in need of 5 administrative assistants in your division, you would do 1 HR 19 administrative assistant 3s, and then you would indicate that you would need 5 of those. All right, I'm gonna pass it on to Isabel, Policy Director.
Hello, I am Isabel Graff, and I serve as Governor Lombardo's Policy Director. I just want to start off by saying thank you. Tim mentioned the last year was a big one, to say the least, so thank you all for your hard work. That hard work does not go unnoticed by our office. And we're excited to start the process for the next legislative session. So let's talk about that. I sent an email to agency directors on January 16th. You can refer to that with details on important guidance and additional information related to the BDR process, as well as a timeline, and a form that you will need to use to submit concept BDRs. The governor's office expects agencies to submit 2 distinct categories of BDRs, corrective and core BDRs. We'll go through more detail in a little bit on those, but corrective BDRs are those small changes to statute, and core BDRs are those bigger, long-term changes that need to be tied to the governor's 3-year strategic plan. If you don't have a copy of that, please feel free to reach out to me, or it is also found on the governor's website. On top of policy BDRs, there are also budget BDRs. If there is no fiscal impact, it is a policy BDR. If there is any fiscal impact greater than $2,000, it is a budget BDR. Again, policy BDRs are either corrective or core. Corrective BDRs are mostly for cleanup of existing language. Examples of housekeeping BDRs are revisions to align with existing policies, fixing language approved in the prior session, or clarifying existing practice. The goal of these is to refine and improve the legal framework so agencies can operate more smoothly. Core policy BDRs are mostly for major revisions or additions to statutes. These are the requests that must be directly aligned with the governor's 3-year strategic plan. They represent strategic initiatives that support the broader policy goals and long-term vision outlined by the governor's office. Again, budget BDRs are everything that have a fiscal impact exceeding $2,000. They are necessary to implement the budget proposed by the governor. The fiscal impact of items included in the executive budget should not also be included in the fiscal note. Budgetary BDRs should note the change being proposed in their submitted budget and what the fiscal impact will be. There should be a corresponding decision unit in NEBS that references the BDR number in the decision unit narrative. David talked about this a little bit, but budget BDRs are due to the budget division by August 31st with the agency request submittal. So over the next few months, the first deadline that we have is March 15th, in which concepts are due to the governor's office for policy BDRs. If you haven't already or haven't already scheduled a meeting with myself and your policy liaison ahead of March 15th, please do so. I've met with about half of the agencies, so we're moving along on that. Again, those BDR concepts for policy BDRs are due to me on March 15th. Then in April, we'll start meeting with a larger group in my office to start reviewing and approving concept policy BDRs. Then starting in June, we will begin final presentations of BDRs as needed. Agency submission in NEBS for policy BDRs is due on June 12th. Then June 12th through July 29th, we will begin our final review period in the governor's office. This process will consist of policy staff and senior staff review of agency BDRs, agency adjustments to BDRs in conjunctions with requests from my office, and then finally a review by the governor himself. Our goal is to have all final drafts of corrective and core BDRs processed and reviewed by July 15th with a final deadline of July 29th. And then August 1st, final drafts of corrective and core BDRs will be submitted to LCB. Are there any questions? Yes. We are in the midst of that, but for this process, please refer to that version. Okay, great. I will turn it over to Christian with LCB.
Thank you for the opportunity to present. My name is Christian Tauer. I'm with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. There's a new team within the Fiscal Analysis Division responsible for managing fiscal notes. If you have dealt with fiscal notes in previous sessions, you will recall that the front-facing person at the LCB dealing with fiscal notes is Cheryl Harvey. Luckily, Cheryl has agreed to continue being a member of the fiscal notes team, so she will continue to be the person sending out notifications and communication concerning fiscal notes. What are fiscal notes? Fiscal notes provide an estimate of the fiscal impact of proposed legislation. They are an essential part of state legislative processes across the country. In Nevada, fiscal notes are governed by NRS 218D.400 through 218D.495. These sections of the law have recently been amended through the passage of Assembly Bill 249 of the 2025 session. And I will try to explain these changes made by Assembly Bill 249 in this presentation. Generally, a fiscal note is required for bills or joint resolutions that decrease revenue or increase expenditures or increase or newly provide for terms of imprisonment. You see here an overview of the fiscal note process. More specifically, of the process involving state agencies. There's also a fiscal note process for local governments. However, in this presentation, I will focus exclusively on the fiscal note process for state agencies, more specifically executive branch agencies. This process starts with LCB Legal determining whether a bill or joint resolution requires a fiscal note. If so, LCB's fiscal division sends out fiscal note requests to the state agencies on which the proposed legislation may have a fiscal impact. Using a web-based fiscal note system, state agencies then provide an estimate of the fiscal impact of the proposed legislation. Next, also using the web-based system, the Governor's Finance Office approves or rejects the fiscal notes proposed by executive branch agencies. Once that is done, LCB compiles and prints the fiscal notes. Here you see an example of a designation made with respect to the fiscal impact of a bill from the last session. And you see here in yellow the effect on the state was yes. I have mentioned Assembly Bill 249 of the 25 session. Passage of this bill has enacted two main changes concerning the designation of the effect on the state. Assembly Bill 249 has changed the designation of a positive effect on the state from yes to may have fiscal impact, and it requires a designation of whether a proposed legislation has a fiscal impact on the state highway fund, which was not required previous to the passage of Assembly Bill 249. Here you see listed the designation options LCB Legal has for its determination of an effect on the state after passage of Assembly Bill 249. And you see here the positive effect is now may have fiscal impact instead of yes. And here you see the options created through the passage of AB 249 concerning any determination of the effect on the state highway fund, and that is new. The same example of the 2025 bill I showed earlier would be designated as indicated in red here if it were to be introduced for the 2025 session, given the passage of AB 249. You see here the effect on the state would be may have fiscal impact instead of yes. And you see a third line here, which is new, designated to effect on the state highway fund. Once LCB Legal has made its designation, any proposed legislation designated as having a fiscal impact is sent to the Fiscal Analysis Division for assignment to affected state agencies. Note, though, that a fiscal note is not required for any measure relating exclusively to the proposed executive budget. The next step in the fiscal note process is that the affected notified state agencies create the fiscal note in the web-based system. With respect to the content of the fiscal note, the law states that they must be factual and concise and include a reliable estimate of the dollar amount of the fiscal impact of the proposed legislation. That fiscal notes have to be factual means that they cannot include any opinion on the proposed legislation. And that is an important point because it's really the only thing the fiscal note team reviews when receiving a fiscal note. If there is inappropriate language included in the fiscal note voicing an opinion on the proposed legislation. If no dollar amount can be estimated, it is okay to state so with reasons for such a conclusion. What is not okay, though, is a fiscal note stating, in addition to any fiscal impact dollar amount, that the proposed legislation is, for example, a terrible idea, or that it should be amended, or that it's great legislation. As mentioned, any fiscal note with such an opinionated language will have to be sent back for your revision. Once received, the state agencies have 5 working days, including review by the GFO in case of executive branch agencies, to submit a fiscal note. Upon request, this period may be expanded by up to 10 additional working days. You see here the options GFO has in approving or rejecting a fiscal note from an executive branch agency. The GFO can approve or reject the fiscal note. If it approves of it, it moves to the LCB for compilation and printing. A few important things to know. Often, fiscal notes are requested on bill draft requests, or BDRs, before the measure is introduced as a bill or joint resolution. If so, the BDR, so the bill draft request, any information on the BDR, as well, or that includes the fiscal note itself, are considered confidential. Note that it is a misdemeanor under the law to disseminate information on BDRs, including fiscal notes, before they are introduced and become a bill or joint resolution. In other words, BDR processes are often confidential in the case. Fiscal note processes are confidential in case they concern BDRs. Another important thing to know is that fiscal notes are in Nevada only required for proposed legislation as introduced, not on reprints. And they must be obtained before a vote is taken in committee. In this context, it's important to note that you always have the option to submit an unsolicited fiscal note. So, if you see a bill as introduced with a fiscal impact on your state agency, and you have not received a fiscal note request from my team, which can and does happen, you have always the option to submit an unsolicited fiscal note. Also, if you see that an amended version of a bill created or changed the fiscal impact on your agency, you have the option to submit an unsolicited fiscal note. Note that unsolicited fiscal notes submitted by executive branch agencies are sent to LCB and GFO simultaneously, so they do not go through a review process at the GFO before submission. Finally, some information on the timeline. We will ask you for a point of contact in your agency for the fiscal note process at around October or November. Then there will be trainings on the process, mainly on the web-based fiscal note system I mentioned in November or December. And finally, in December or January, we will start the fiscal note process for pre-filed legislative measures. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to answer any question to the extent that I can, and I look forward to working with all of you on fiscal notes during the next legislative cycle. Thank you. See no questions.
Okay, so really quick, because the next phase is just working through the technical portion of NEBS and the budget manual. So we'll just take a quick 5-minute break, and this will allow any directors that need to leave to do so if they would like. I don't want to hold any directors here for any of the technical pieces of this. So we'll reconvene at 11:20.
There we go. Everyone getting ready? Testing, testing. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dustin Speed. I'm an Executive Branch Budget Officer with the Governor's Finance Office, and today I'll be going over the Budget Building Manual, bill changes, and important dates and deadlines to keep in mind. The Budget Building Manual is updated every 2 years and is used as a how-to guide to help agencies build their budgets. This includes the Governor's Policy Matrix, the Glossary of Definitions, and a styling guide to help with writing. The Budget Building Manual can be used to set up in-house training for the agencies. However, we would state that the GFO can help provide in-person and individual trainings if you contact your Executive Branch Budget Officer, if needed. The Budget Building Manual, as of yesterday, is available on the Governor's Finance Office website, budget.nv.gov. And as a side note, I'll note that we also have some wonderful YouTube videos narrated by none other than your GFO, beloved GFO officers. What's new? New things in the Budget Building Manual. Let me get to the next page there. We have the new program plan section, which was formerly the business plan section, federal grant requirements section, and we have a section regarding the use of AI and Copilot. Regarding AI and Copilot, we'll say that this is a useful tool to help you with flushing out your justifications. I don't recommend necessarily using it on synopsis because that'll be dictated heavily by the styling guide. And then the last thing that you won't see on here on the slide is we also have an additional new section for a pitcher-catcher report, which is new to this budget building cycle. Some bill changes. AB 356, the governor must include agreed upon amounts from collective bargaining agreements in biennial executive budget. If this is not practicable, that's a good word, a report explaining why must be submitted to the legislature the same day as the budget. Negotiations start on or before April 1st of each even-numbered year, which the previous date was October 1st. Arbitration deadlines. Arbitration begins September 15th. This was changed from February 15th, and all decisions are due by December 5th, which is the change from the previous date of March 5th. The Economic Forum report deadline has moved from December 3rd to November 15th of each even-numbered year. SB 419, contracting authority. Has changed. The director of the Legislative Counsel Bureau can now enter into contracts to assist with revenue forecasting and data processing services. And there's some changes to report deadlines. The Economic Forum's second report deadline is now April 1st of each odd-numbered year, which was changed from May 1st. This is the big one, SB 462 for our budget, folks. This is the changes to adjusted base. Adjusted base is based now on revenues and expenditures from the even-numbered year of the biennium, much like we did not last biennium, but all previous bienniums before that. Some of the included costs include continuing costs for programs, new or enhanced programs, removal of one-time expenditures and expired programs, changes in revenue authority, travel, rent, insurance, and cost allocations, ongoing contractual obligation and expenditures approved by the interim finance committee, and annualization of partial year costs and grant related revenues. Other necessary adjustments are based on expenditure limits or the GFO director's discretion. The rainy day fund, the cap on the account to stabilize operation of the state government, also known as the rainy day fund account, is based on the previous fiscal year's appropriations and authorized expenditures. I will note the rainy day fund calculation hasn't changed. The cap was put into statute to provide clarity. Cost allocation plan, responsibility for preparing the annual statewide cost allocation plan, also known as SWICAP or SWACAP, depending on who you are, moves from the administrator of the Administrative Services Division to the Budget Division of the Office of Finance. Some important dates. Obviously, some of the preceding presenters went over a lot of the important dates. I'm going to try to hit some high points so I don't bore you all to death. We got to keep you awake till lunchtime. First and foremost, the uniform schedules have already gone out. The deadline on that was January 15th, so most of you that have those should have seen these by now. Budget kickoff, that is today. You are here. If we're looking at the mall map, this is where we're standing currently. That's an important thing to see. And then we got our bill draft request concepts, which is due March 15th. One thing, as a side note, I'll kind of reiterate, BDRs are extremely important for the agencies, not only your cleanup and policy BDRs, but specifically budget-related BDRs are really key. I mean, you have a lot of agencies that have fees and different rates that are dictated upon by statute, and we only get a shot to change these every 2 years. So if you have a need, make sure that this is addressed as soon as possible. A couple other important dates to kind of reiterate here: capital improvement and deferred maintenance, April 1st. Your ties due to GTO, April 1st. Collective bargaining, starting the 1st and ending on December, obviously, because we have the finalized numbers will come into December. And new vehicle requests. We'll reiterate that one. That's a big one. New vehicle requests to our good friends at Fleet Services. Moving down to the next set of dates here. The governor's approved policy bill draft request is due on July 29th. Budgetary bill draft requests due to the governor's finance office as of August 14th. And then you have your CIP presentations, which will be carried out on August 26th and 27th. Those are all important. According to the slide, in their presentation, they had different dates. That's why I said that.
Yeah, no, they were supposed to be 28 and 29, so make that clear.
Correction, 28th and 29th. Don't quote me on that. All right. All right, moving to the last round of dates here. These are the ones that are especially important for us fiscal folks and the folks at GFO here. So if I can't reiterate one of the most important one here, it's this one here on September 1st. Do not be late. We love you guys, but don't be late. That's the one we need you. Make sure you got your agency request budget submitted. The agency presentations to the governor's office, the GFO, and the Legislative Council Bureau, those take place between September 21st and October 2nd. So make sure you're getting prepared for those. Those are very important. Adjusted base questions to agency will be going out, or due to go out by November 9th. The economic forum report, which has heavy impact on our revenues, that's going to be happening on November 13th. The finalizing of the CBA budget for 12/7, so that's December 7th through the 11th. Final enhancements decisions take place between December 1st and the 30th, which is a major impact, and then we'll be starting the printing process between January 1st and the 10th. At this point, I would like to hand it over to Director Greenemeyer for any questions, and if you do have questions, please step over to the microphone to my right, your left, so that the people online can hear us. Thank you for your time.
All right, do we have any questions that's going to happen in this next 28-29 biennial build? Come on up to the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Hi, I'm Christy Defer. I'm with Public Safety. I just have a question about what Dustin just spoke about, going back to year one being the base now like we used to do. What are the differences are there any differences between this way now and the old way of doing things? As far as base budget?
Okay, so in the last biennium build, we used the odd number year to build the budgets, right. And that was a change. So now we are going back to how we done it previously, which is now the even number year. So your fiscal year 2026 actuals are now your base budget.
Okay.
And you will adjust your base budget based on your fiscal year 26 actual dollars.
Okay, so basically how we were doing it before.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
2 times cap. So on the 2 times cap, we are working on the calculations, and that'll be posted to the Governor's Finance Office website by April 1st. I'd like to have it sooner, so it'll be posted sooner if it's completed, but no later than April 1st. And just one more clarity. So the Public Works Board CIP presentation, I want to make sure that's clear. It's August 28th and August 29th. And we will make that correction on the slides and repost on the website so everybody knows. You guys are easy. No difficult questions. Nope. All right. Then with that, I guess we will let you all go, and unless anybody wants to have a comment or add anything. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.